Hi, I'm Patrick Crisley, pastor and teaching elder at First Presbyterian Church, Fort Lauderdale, and want to welcome you to our daily devotional that we call This One Thing, as we take our scripture from the Daily Common Lectionary, which today is coming from Numbers chapters 22, verses 21 to 38. Now, just like in our Christian New Testament, where the gospel writers have their own view and spin on Jesus' life and work, so too does the Old Testament scripture. On one hand, you have the book of Exodus, which describes Moses and the Hebrews' liberation from slavery as they wandered through the desert for 40 years in the wilderness. And they tell the Exodus stories in a very particular way. The book of Numbers picks up in the middle of the desert wandering. It picks up in the middle of the Exodus story. But it tells the stories from a little bit different point of view. They describe and detail the same stories, but in slightly different ways than the Exodus account. It also includes stories in the Exodus narrative, like today's fable about a prophet named Balaam and his infamous donkey. Now let me place this in story time for you. Moses and the Hebrews have been wandering around the desert for many, many years. And they have taken a southern route across the Sinai Peninsula, and they've come to what is today the very southern end of modern-day Jordan, right below the Dead Sea. Now, at that time, it was ruled by Balak, the king of Moab. And Moses was approaching his land, and Balak got a little bit nervous. And so what he wanted to do is he wanted to send for Balaam, the prophet, to come and curse Moses and the Hebrews who were about to enter into his land. Now, fortunately for Balaam, as he mounted his ass and began on his journey to go and curse Moses and the Hebrews, fortunately for him, his donkey had a better vision of God's desires than the prophet did. And as they made their way, the donkey suddenly veered off the road and went into a field and stopped. And Balaam got very upset and started beating the donkey to get him moving again. A little bit further on in the journey, the donkey veered off the path again, and this time veered off so close to a rocky wall that it cut up Balaam's legs and scraped them. And once again, Balaam began beating his donkey for running him into the wall. Finally, a little bit further away, they came to a point in the path that was narrow, and the donkey couldn't turn left or right. And so the donkey just sat. Balaam on top, the donkey sits down in the middle of the road. Balaam was furious. He began to beat the donkey, curse and cuss the donkey, when all of a sudden, the donkey, who had quite enough of this whipping, finally turned around and spoke directly to Balaam and said, "Lay off it already. What have I done to you that you're treating me like this these last 3 times? And Balaam, he screams at the donkey, "It's because you've made a fool of me." And the donkey says, "Balaam, you've been riding me all your life. Have I ever done anything like this to you before? Of course not. Don't you think there might be a reason why I did what I did?" And at that moment, Balaam saw what the donkey had seen the entire time. You see, there before him was this fiery angel of the Lord with a sword drawn, ready to make mincemeat of Balaam, had the donkey not stopped. The angel of the Lord then begins to upbraid Balaam for beating the donkey for no reason other than the donkey could see God's presence in a way Balaam couldn't. In essence, Balaam beat the donkey for demonstrating a healthy fear of the Lord's presence that Balaam did not notice. Friends, the one thing I want to leave with us today is that all of us will encounter those donkeys in our life that will confuse and confound us. The lesson for you and for me is to remember that though it might behoove us to stop and listen to those donkeys, they just might see or understanding something about God we don't. Maybe they see something about how we are to live our faith as well. Maybe, just maybe, the ass has something to say to us from God if we would only humble ourselves, open our eyes and see, and open our ears to hear. Friends, remember this one thing. I love you, and I'll see you later this week.